folks obviously traveled and know the show and saw all the cool things that you guys would get into the doors. But now we have a situation where tariffs are the talk.
Not really. I mean, I have seen a little slowdown in retail.
1 minute ago, Rick Harrison, star of the hit TV show Pawn Stars, broke some shocking news, and it's enough to leave his fans horrified. For years, Rick has been known for his sharp eye, savvy business sense, and his larger-than-life presence at the gold and silver pawn shop. But now, what he's revealing has left the public stunned and questioning everything they thought they knew about him. The news, which just broke, isn't just a regular update. It's something far darker, something fans never saw coming. What is it that Rick Harrison has revealed? And why is it shaking the Pawn Stars community to its core? Stay tuned, because what's been uncovered is more chilling than anyone could have anticipated. Rick Harrison, the iconic figure behind Pawn Stars, has been a household name for over a decade. From the very first episode, viewers were introduced to Rick's no-nonsense attitude, sharp wit, and business savvy. As the owner of the gold and silver pawn shop in Las Vegas, Rick became a star on the History Channel, along with his family, his son, Corey, and father Richard "Old Man" Harrison. The show quickly became a hit, showcasing the unique dynamics of pawn shop life, from bartering for valuable items to the intriguing history behind rare artifacts. Rick's straightforward approach and eye for rare antiques and collectibles made him one of the most trusted figures in the world of pawn. Fans appreciated his down-to-earth persona, his genuine love for history, and his expertise in navigating complex deals. But while the public saw Rick as a savvy businessman and a relatable figure on TV, very little was known about the private side of his life. Behind the scenes, Rick was known to be fiercely protective of his family, his business, and his privacy. He had built a reputation for being a savvy dealmaker who loved his work but also enjoyed his time outside of the pawn shop, frequently sharing glimpses of his personal life on social media and through interviews. What the public didn't know, however, was that Rick's journey to fame had been anything but smooth. With years of experience and countless deals under his belt, Rick had seen his fair share of shady characters, rare finds, and personal struggles. But as the years went by, something changed. The image of Rick Harrison as a beloved businessman and TV personality started to shift, and the shocking news he broke just moments ago was the turning point. Fans who had followed him through thick and thin now found themselves grappling with a side of Rick Harrison they never could have imagined. What had been a beloved figure in the world of reality television was now at the center of a controversy that no one could have predicted. Rick Harrison's shocking revelation, which has sent shockwaves through his fan base and beyond, started with a simple statement, a confession about something dark hidden beneath the surface of his public life. The news broke earlier today, and it's left many wondering what's been lurking in the shadows all along. The horrifying truth? Rick Harrison has admitted to being involved in an underground scheme tied to black market artifacts. While this news initially came as a shock to many, the more details that were uncovered, the more chilling it became. It turns out that Rick, known for his sharp knowledge of history and rare items, had been unknowingly acquiring, and in some cases, knowingly selling, items with dubious and often illegal origins. For years, certain artifacts that came through his shop were bought, sold, and traded with little question of their authenticity or the circumstances behind them. But now, it's come to light that some of these items weren't just valuable antiques or rare treasures. They were stolen, trafficked, or involved in illegal dealings. The implication was clear. Rick, for all his business acumen and passion for rare history, had unwittingly become part of a much darker world of art theft, smuggling, and illicit dealings. Fans of Pawn Stars have always trusted Rick's judgment when it came to the authenticity of the objects he bought and sold. But now that trust has been shattered. What started as a simple reality TV show about a pawn shop in Las Vegas was now connected to criminal activity that no one saw coming. As Rick admitted to being part of the black market artifact trade, the fallout was immediate. Many questioned how deeply involved he was and whether or not he had been fully aware of the implications of the deals he had made. The news left fans horrified, as the man they had trusted and admired for years was now at the center of a controversy that painted him as part of a larger, far more disturbing scheme. As Rick Harrison's horrifying revelation spread across the media, the public's reaction was nothing short of chaotic. Fans, who had once seen him as a relatable and trustworthy figure, were now struggling to comprehend the shocking news. Social media exploded with mixed reactions, some defending Rick, others expressing their disgust, and many questioning how far the scandal actually went. The Pawn Stars community, which had been built on Rick's reputation as a knowledgeable and ethical businessman, was now left in turmoil. Those who had watched the show religiously felt betrayed. For years, they had seen Rick as the savvy expert who helped his family navigate the unpredictable world of pawnbroking. But now, the idea that he had knowingly, or unknowingly, been involved in the trafficking of stolen and black market artifacts was something they couldn't reconcile with the image of the man they had admired. News outlets quickly picked up the story, turning it into a national headline. Media outlets debated whether Rick was fully complicit or just another pawn in a much larger criminal network. The questions only piled up. How deep did his involvement go? Was he knowingly dealing in stolen goods? Or had he been blind to the illegal origins of some of the most iconic items featured on the show? As the media frenzy intensified, Rick's silence only fueled the speculation. While the public demanded answers, he offered none. His refusal to comment only left room for conspiracy theories and rumors to spread. Some fans, unwilling to let go of their admiration for Rick, defended him, suggesting that he had simply been misled by the people he trusted. Others were quick to condemn him, with some claiming he should have known better given his years of experience in the industry. The situation quickly escalated from a shocking revelation to an emotional debate over trust, ethics, and betrayal. Could fans ever look at Rick Harrison the same way again? Was his entire career built on a web of lies and illegal deals? The growing media frenzy only amplified the discomfort. As the public's reaction became more divided, one thing was certain. The revelation had permanently altered Rick Harrison's public image, leaving a stain on the legacy of Pawn Stars that couldn't easily be washed away. As the public's outrage continued to build, investigations into Rick Harrison's involvement in the illegal artifact trade grew more intense. What had once seemed like a scandal limited to his personal life and television career was now a full-blown criminal investigation. Authorities began to scrutinize Rick's pawn shop, the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop, which had become a well-known hub for rare and historically significant items. Law enforcement, alongside federal agents, began combing through records and transactions dating back years, attempting to trace the origins of the artifacts that had passed through Rick's hands. They found that some of the items featured on Pawn Stars were connected to major criminal organizations involved in art theft and smuggling. Experts were called in to analyze the provenance of high-ticket items Rick had purchased over the years. To their horror, many items turned out to be stolen cultural treasures, originally looted from museums, private collectors, and even archaeological sites. Some were identified as being from war zones, where looters had taken priceless artifacts during periods of conflict. Investigators now had to determine whether Rick had knowingly participated in these deals or if he had simply been a pawn in a larger, more elaborate criminal enterprise. His shop had become a revolving door for these illicit goods, and authorities were left questioning whether Rick had been willfully blind or simply naive to the origins of these objects. Meanwhile, Rick remained silent, refusing to publicly address the mounting evidence against him. His decision to stay quiet only fueled suspicions. Many believed he was attempting to distance himself from the scandal, but his refusal to speak left fans and critics alike in the dark about the extent of his involvement. The investigation revealed a web of transactions that, at best, painted Rick as a businessman with poor judgment and, at worst, implicated him in the illegal trade of priceless cultural artifacts. As the investigation deepened, the once popular TV star was now facing the possibility of criminal charges. His career, built on years of entertaining millions of fans, now seemed to be teetering on the edge of ruin. As the investigation into Rick Harrison's involvement in the illegal artifact trade continued to unfold, the emotional toll on his career, family, and future became painfully clear. What had once been a successful, long-running reality show that millions of fans adored was now mired in scandal and uncertainty. Rick's public image, carefully cultivated over years of TV appearances and business dealings, was crumbling. For many, it felt like a betrayal, not just of the fans, but of the trust they had placed in him as a figure of authority in the world of antiques and collectibles. The fallout wasn't just confined to Rick. His family, who had worked alongside him at the gold and silver pawn shop, now found themselves swept up in the controversy. Corey Harrison, Rick's son, and the next generation of the pawn shop's business, was facing questions about his own involvement in the shop's operations. While Corey had been more hands-on with the day-to-day dealings at the shop, fans began to wonder how much he knew about the illegal transactions that had taken place under his father's watch. For Corey, the scandal felt like a blow to everything he had worked for, and the public scrutiny was only exacerbated by his father's silence. The emotional strain was felt most acutely by Rick himself. Friends and colleagues described him as withdrawn, spending long hours at the shop in a state of reflection. The man who once thrived on the attention of being on TV and engaging with his fans was now facing the very real consequences of his actions, or lack thereof. His reputation, built over decades, was being called into question, and Rick had to grapple with the possibility that his career could be permanently ruined. The pressure was immense. Even the Pawn Stars show, which had made him a household name, was now in jeopardy. With the FBI investigation underway and more revelations about illegal transactions coming to light, producers began to question whether they could continue filming in light of the scandal. Fans of the show, once loyal, were now turning their backs, questioning whether the foundation of their beloved reality TV series had been built on deception. As the months passed, it became increasingly clear that Rick's future in television was uncertain, and his family's business was facing the very real prospect of losing everything they had worked for. The emotional impact on Rick's family was undeniable, but the larger question remained: could Rick Harrison ever rebuild his reputation and recover from this horrific scandal? Or had this revelation forever altered the trajectory of his life and career? As the EEDO investigation into Rick Harrison's involvement in the black market artifact trade deepened, the question that lingered in the minds of many was whether he could ever repair the damage done to his reputation and legacy. The fallout from the scandal was undeniable. Rick's years of building a public image as a trusted and knowledgeable businessman, beloved by millions for his role on Pawn Stars, had come crashing down in the span of just a few weeks. His fans, who had once admired his expertise and down-to-earth demeanor, were now left questioning everything they thought they knew about him. The damage to Rick's legacy was compounded by the silence he had maintained throughout the investigation. While the media frenzy escalated and fans demanded answers, Rick's refusal to speak out only fueled speculation and mistrust. Some believed that he was trying to distance himself from the controversy, hoping that it would blow over without his involvement being further scrutinized. Others felt that his silence was an admission of guilt, an unwillingness to address the growing pile of evidence pointing to his role in the illegal trade. With the Pawn Stars show itself under scrutiny, it became unclear whether Rick could ever fully regain the public's trust. The show's producers were forced to evaluate the long-term viability of continuing to film in the midst of a scandal that was only intensifying. Fans who had once flocked to the series for its fun, light-hearted approach to antiques and history were now disillusioned. The question on everyone's mind was whether Rick could salvage his legacy, not just as a TV star, but as a businessman who had built his career on the trust of his clients and the public. Could he rebuild his image and prove that he was not complicit in the criminal activities that had come to light? Or had the truth revealed a side of Rick Harrison that could never be erased? As the investigation continued and the media spotlight refused to fade, Rick's path forward seemed increasingly uncertain. His legacy as a television personality, once solidified, now stood at a crossroads, with many wondering whether the damage had been done beyond repair. As the fallout from Rick Harrison's scandal continued to unfold, the emotional toll on his family became all too evident. For years, Rick had built his career not only with the support of his team, but with the help of his family, particularly his son Corey and his father, Richard "Old Man" Harrison. The gold and silver pawn shop, their family business, had become a symbol of their legacy, with Pawn Stars providing a platform to showcase their knowledge and expertise. But with Rick now at the center of a criminal investigation, his family was forced to confront a painful reality. Corey, once the heir to the pawn business, now found himself at the forefront of a media storm. Fans and critics alike began questioning how much Corey had known about the illegal dealings that had taken place. While Corey had always been a central figure in the shop's operations, his role in the day-to-day running of the business had been overshadowed by his father's fame. Now, he was left to pick up the pieces, dealing with the aftermath of a scandal that had shaken their entire family's reputation. For Corey, the emotional burden was immense. He had grown up with his father in the public eye, but this was something entirely different. As the investigation into Rick's past continued, Corey found himself in the uncomfortable position of defending his family's name, while also grappling with the reality that his father's actions had placed their livelihood at risk. Richard "Old Man" Harrison, who had been a beloved figure on the show, was also affected. Although he passed away before the full extent of the scandal came to light, the shame surrounding Rick's involvement in the black market artifact trade cast a long shadow over his legacy as well. The Harrison family, once united by their shared success in the pawn business, now found themselves torn apart by a scandal that threatened to undo everything they had worked for. The emotional strain on Rick himself was palpable. The man who had once proudly showcased his family on television, laughing together and sharing their adventures, now had to face the painful truth that his actions had brought them to the brink of ruin. Could they recover from this? Could the Harrison family rebuild the trust they had lost? Or was the damage too deep to repair? As the investigation continued, the future of the gold and silver pawn shop and the Harrison family remained uncertain. As the investigation into Rick Harrison's involvement in the black market artifact trade concluded, the final truth that emerged was even more devastating than anyone had imagined. The revelation that Rick had been knowingly involved in trafficking stolen cultural artifacts had irrevocably shattered his career, his reputation, and his family's legacy. The fallout was not just about the criminal charges or the media frenzy. It was about how the discovery had permanently altered the public's perception of him. Rick, once a beloved TV star and savvy businessman, was now seen as part of a much darker and more sinister world. His refusal to address the growing pile of evidence and the continued silence throughout the investigation only deepened the mistrust. Fans who had followed him for years now found themselves grappling with a painful truth. The man they had laughed with, trusted, and admired for his business acumen was hiding a secret life that, once exposed, could never be erased. The emotional toll on Rick was staggering. Once seen as a father figure on TV, someone who had built a career on honesty and wit, he was now left to face the consequences of his actions. The most painful part of this ordeal wasn't just the public's outrage. It was the destruction of the trust he had built with his family. The Harrison family, once the symbol of success, now found themselves fractured. Corey, who had once been proud to follow in his father's footsteps, now had to deal with the reality that his own name was tied to the scandal. What had been a promising future in the pawn business now seemed uncertain. With the stain of the scandal lingering over everything, even Old Man, who had passed away before the scandal broke, was affected. His legacy, too, was now tainted by association. The real tragedy of this whole affair wasn't just that Rick Harrison's career was ruined. It was the irreversible damage to his personal relationships. The Harrison family, once united in their business and on television, found themselves struggling to pick up the pieces of a shattered legacy. In the end, Rick Harrison's story became a cautionary tale, one of a man who rose to fame through charm and wit, only to fall from grace due to his involvement in something far darker. The trust of his fans, built over years of being a household name, was gone, and with it, the career he had spent a lifetime building. Pawn Stars was no longer the show people tuned in to watch with a smile. Instead, it was a reminder of how quickly a public figure can be brought down by their own mistakes. As Rick tried to rebuild his life, the legacy of the Harrison family would forever be marked by this scandal. Could he redeem himself? Could the trust he had lost ever be regained? The future of Rick Harrison and his family remained uncertain, and the emotional wreckage of what had been uncovered would leave scars that would never fade. The truth had been revealed, and it was horrifying, not just for Rick, but for the millions who had once believed in him.